Good evening, everyone. I am Susanna Lal, and on behalf of ICCE, I would like to welcome you all to Circular Chat, a talk series that takes place every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Our talk show involves an insightful conversation with people belonging to various sectors and agencies committed to work for a circular economy. We invite people from industry, government, multilateral organizations, and nonprofits from a particular sector to understand all perspectives. ICC was incorporated in July 2020 and formally launched in August 2020 to function as the first international body in India working on the principles of circular economy. ICC is a global platform for public and private sector companies, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and business associations. We help align stakeholders' practices towards the circular economy's basic tenets in material efficiency, system design, resource recovery, and reducing negative externalities across sectors. ICC operates on three strong pillars: educate, innovate, and inspire. Today, in another session of Circular Chat, we will have a discussion with Mr. Hemant Chaudhary, founder of Circular Economy Alliance Australia, also known as CEAA, a global coalition for leadership and capacity building in the circular economy. Hemant is based in Australia, and in a career spanning 28 years, he has worked for large corporations, governments, peak industry bodies, non government organizations, municipal corporations, community groups, and venture capital investors. Notable entities he has been affiliated with include the United Nations, the Government of South Australia, BHP Billiton, Santos, SA Water, Worley Parsons, City of Salisbury, Siemens, and the University of Adelaide. Mr. Chaudhary is also an executive advisor to Green Industries South Australia and an environmental specialist appointed to the UN Consultant Panel. He has developed the iconic Global Leadership Program on the Circular Economy and Executive Leadership Program in collaboration with UNCRD and the South Australian Government. He has recently worked with the World Bank on the Smart Republic 2019 Forum, a multi partner global forum to deliberate on the collaboration framework between government and multiple agencies like the World Bank, UN Habitat, UN Global Compact, Asian Development Bank, industry, and academia for achieving shared goal of making India as a smart republic by 2022. Mr. Hemant, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and we look forward to this talk show.
Thank you. Thank you, Susanna. Great to be here.
Yes, sir. So, sir, your company aims to provide leadership and build capacity in circular economy by bringing together leading global experts, leaders, and decision makers from various fields who within your business, your partnership stakeholders, or within your network in your business could play a role in defining, engaging, and implementing your circular strategies. And how do they do that?
Everyone, Susanna, I think the core tenet, if you want to transition to circular economy, and I always say this, that circular economy is more of a social reengineering uh, project. This requires all pillars of the society, and it requires multi-sectoral collaboration. You cannot do it alone. Government cannot do it alone, corporates cannot do it alone, and community would not be able to do it alone, even if they want to. So you really have to have an ability, and you need to start from the top, obviously, because first principle is that you inspire the decision makers and the leaders who actually can understand the economic and environmental imperative of transitioning to circular economy, the critical necessity of it, and the sheer magnitude of benefits that it will provide to the society. So to some extent, you have to start maybe at the top, and that's the basis for the global leadership program on circular economy. Um, and it is we started that initiative in collaboration with UNCRD, some international agencies, and the government of South Australia in 2016. It was a follow-up of a major event we had in South Australia, in Adelaide in 2016. It was called the 3R Forum, organized by UNCRD, and we had more than 45 countries participate in that forum, and some of the parties, they were mostly participants who were senior ministers and senior figures from the government. And it was unanimously agreed that if you want to make this transition, you need to first demystify circular economy. You start from the top. You really, that's where you have to kind of build capacity and understanding of circular economy. And I'm not talking about just understanding in technical terms or environmental terms. I think, we need to keep it very simple, and that's been always the focus of all my work. So this has been the genesis of the leadership work that I've been doing with agencies and leaders around the world. And my focus of this leadership development, I call it a three P approach, where with you learn with your peers, you learn with practitioners, and you learn on projects. So it's very experiential learning platform. So it's a 5-day program we run every year, sometimes twice a year, and we limit it to maybe 25 very senior people. We had ministers from India participate in that program, and we keep it at a level where they engage and they understand circular economy at a practitioners perspective. And this is actually very important, because you need to find a way where they can relate to it far better, and they can understand the correlation between concepts, ideas, and translate those ideas into actions.
Right. So, sir, this global leadership program that you're talking about, can you tell us more about what it seeks to deliver or offer? And most importantly, how can it assist in the growth of circular economy principles in the market value chain?
Very good point and very good question, Susanna. It is very much an immersion model. It's an immersion program. So what happens? Imagine a melting pot. So you have, it's very interesting. For every leadership program, we had a phenomenal mix of people from different sectors, from corporate to World Bank to government, political, and academic sectors. We also had fantastic gender balance in the kind of participants who came along. We also had people from diversity of countries. So far, we had 14 countries participate in the leadership program. So by default, what it does is it allows these people to come and be together for say, period of 5 to 7 days, and you really exchange ideas, you learn from each other. But you create a framework, you create an ecosystem for that. And what is that? Is that we actually have a lot of site visits, and they can see circular economy in practice, in action. But then, when you say, imagine I'll just use a hypothetical situation, or it's actually a real situation. You go and visit a plastic recycling uh, you know plant, and the technology looks pretty straightforward. Anybody could do it anywhere. It's not like rocket science. But what is that allows that whole value addition, or whole journey of that plastic bottle, or that particular plastic material, from the point of view of actually consumption, to where it is, the way it is then segregated, the way it's disposed, the way it's collected, the way then it goes to the point where it gets reprocessed and recycled. What fuels that journey? And what fuels that journey is a combination of policy, regulation, governance, market instruments, technology, and community participation. And that sits behind. It's like, how you get a brand new car, BMW, and all you need to do as a driver is to press the ignition key, and you really don't know what sits behind, right? It just starts and it does phenomenal job on the road. I think this is what people need to understand, that for a thing to happen, for finally circular economy to happen, there is this whole body of work and collaboration that has to sit behind.
Right.
That is what I think is fundamental aim of what I'm trying to achieve. Because at the end of the day, This is not going to be driven only by regulation. You could regulate to the nth degree. Nobody cares. You, one of the major issues that we have, and especially in India, I always say this, that where is the polluter pays principle? It is non-existent. Now, without polluter pays principle, there is no incentive for anybody to practice circular economy, because you're not putting a value on pollution. You're not putting, and also you're not putting a value on the resource. You need to look at what you put in the bin or what goes out in a gar. You need to look at it as raw material for something, right?
Right.
Now, if the raw material is contaminated, is polluted, is because nobody segregates it, and it goes into waterways and what else and what not. People are not educated. So imagine this, that you could educate people and they get inspired, but they have no systems to manage to put their recyclables. It's not going to work. They might do all the right things, and we would see what happens in a lot of developed countries, including USA and Singapore. That you can put things in the recycling bin. You do the right thing as a consumer. What happens? It still goes to landfill. Because you know why? Because there are not enough market instruments there to encourage recycling. Because then you might actually have all those things in place. You might actually even recycle. You might actually create a product out of that material. Is there a buyer for it? Where is the end buyer for that product? So the company which is going to set up a plant to recycle or put some technology in place to repurpose that, they need to understand the whole value chain. They need to make a decision based on, okay, they can. And that's what we do in South Australia, because when we started in 1993, when I started my working life here, 92, 93, 92 actually, sorry, 91, 92, long time ago, 30 years. We introduced a levy. I started with the EPA. I was a founding officer in the EPA, and we started a levy of $5 a ton for every ton of waste that went to landfill. And the community and industry, they were up against arm. They'll say, this is an imposition by the government on us. Why should we pay any extra levies? We are already getting tax. And we had to convince them that, look, this is not something that is just a money grabbing exercise. The money that we will get from this $5 a ton levy for every ton that goes to landfill will go into improving practices, in improving the infrastructure, improving the regulation, and providing incentives then for waste minimization, because there will be an incentive for people to minimize. Now, as we stand in third, that levy is $140 a ton. So for every ton of waste going to landfill, there's $140. Now it's a strong incentive for you to minimize waste.
True.
Okay, and then what happens? If if I got a technology which provides, which has, I need the land, I need the infrastructure to provide high quality compost from the green waste or food waste and organic waste, right? I can go to council and say, look, instead of paying $140 a ton for this waste, I will take it from you at maybe $70 a ton. So you are saving $70 a ton upfront as a council, as a collecting agency, and I will value add. I will create a compost. I will sell it in the market, and I'll make it into my financially viable business. But without this levy, it won't work. So I get a lot of requests from India, and they say, look, get us a technology. I say, I can't get your technology. You know what, India, we talk about technology. Technology, there's no silver bullet solution here. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy that, I say, what's the point in having a technology which is not going to work? Because you know what, look at what's happened with the waste to energy plant. It's one of the biggest con job done, biggest hoodwinking job done in India. Tell me one waste to energy plant that works in India very well. It's a classic case of, selling a solution which is not going to work. And why it's not going to work? It's like, I say, you buy a Rolls Royce and then you want to run it on kerosene. It's not going to run. Where is the integrity of the raw material that goes and fuels the waste to energy plant? What is the calorific value of that waste material? Next to nothing. Because the waste in India is very high in silt, very high in moisture. It is quite different than what actually gets to an incinerator, say in Germany or in Japan. So these things have to be thought through, and that is where I think a lot of work has to happen. And then I'm only talking from a waste perspective. Circular economy is far too bigger than this. I'm not trying to, but let's make a start somewhere, right? I mean, you got to learn how to walk before you run, learn how to run. And at the moment, we are even, we need to really and I'm not trying to say that in a negative way. I just want to highlight that that if it was simple, then recycling is a easy concept to understand. How many countries are doing it well at the moment? Very few. If it was just a concept and anybody would understand the concept, then why is it not happening then? Because there are so many socio-economic, um, cultural factors and barriers that come into play. And if you are really serious about driving circular economy, then you got to be working at that level.
Right. Those are some wonderful insights, Mr. Hemant. Talking about circular economy alliance Australia, you are leading it. And what are the current new projects that the company is recently engaging in terms of innovative, sustainable business ideas and circular design principles?
A number of things we do. I guess if you want to really broadly categorize the work we do, obviously we call it a global networking platform. It's a nice term, but it's basically a way where we engage with a broader community out there from other countries, and similar to what you guys are doing. I think it's a fantastic initiative. India needed this, so congratulations to Shalini, and the team. It's very worthwhile, and may you have all the power to make this a successful endeavor. So yes, you need a collaborative platform, which is what we do with the CEAA. We do the leadership development, and that's something that consumes a fair bit of our time. We do a lot of knowledge building and knowledge sharing, and basically thought leadership in circular economy. And there's a long way to go, but that's what we've spent a bit of time on it.
Yes.
And there are we are, as we speak, also looking at some models, and hopefully in the next month or two we will make some major announcements, where the work that we are doing with CEAA, we could even further expand it, because at some stage, um, it is you require somewhere a platform where everyone is on the same level of understanding, so that allows you to then drive the projects, right? So at the moment, imagine this: you got government, you got industry, you got corporates, you got community, NGOs, academia, and they all have their own narrative and own perspective. So what is that finally gets them together and actually achieves a common platform that allows some identifying some really good projects and programs which can actually deliver this better. And I think that is one area where I think I would like to work a lot. I'll also like to sort of, hopefully that will happen as things progress, is engage at a level where I believe that not just at a corporate level, but at a policy and even at a political level, we really need to engage more. We really need to sit down and demystify circular economy at that level, and make this decision makers understand the potential, and more than the potential, the missed opportunity.
Right.
And it's a mistake we can ill afford to make now. We already believe, rightfully so, that we have reached a tipping point, both in terms of the impact on the environment with the climate change issue and also other things that go with it. But are we really at a point where we can claim that in 50 years time, the quality of life or certain things that we take for granted today would be available in 50 years time? Maybe in our lifetime, but what about afterwards? If you really want to be looking at sustainability, the way we are consuming resources, in you know in 20 or 30 years ago, the world was sitting at around 30 billion tons of resources extracted. We have crossed 100 billion tons now this year, and I think the way it's going, it could be 200 billion tons in another 20 years, 25 years. That is based on estimate 4 to 5 times Earth's capacity to regenerate. This is clearly not sustainable. We talk about plastic, right? From all accounts, it will surprise you. Plastic is tipped to go up. The consumption, the production of plastic in the next 10 years is tipped to go up 3 times. And here we're talking about all these plastic programs and everything. So we really are not dealing with the core issues. We are dealing with issues at a peripheral level. And I guess it's up to us then. you know People like whoever who can see it. It's like maybe the Titanic is going at full steam to hit the iceberg. The captain is fast asleep. Maybe the idiots like myself and maybe Shalini there and few others can see the iceberg, and we are trying to shout with our feeble voice, iceberg ahead, and hopefully somebody will listen. So let's see. Will time will tell.
Right. So, congratulations on the work that your company is doing, and I wish you all the best for your future accomplishments. So, talking about Australia, we know Australia is climbing up the ladder of
Yeah.
transitioning from a linear to a circular economy. But what are still some of the current challenges or obstacles that businesses, startups, and other private stakeholders face in adopting and implementing circularity in their daily operations within the company culture?
Look, I think if I have to be brutally honest, the companies and businesses get it now because they can. I think that they can see the sheer economic benefit for them to minimize waste, to be more efficient, to conserve resources, to be efficient in water, energy, minimize waste. Look at their production processes, look at their value chain, look at their material inventory. They are getting it, and they understand the value of doing. And they may not call it circular economy, but definitely they are pushed purely from economic reason, and in some cases because of regulation, and some cases because of policy measures that they have to comply with. Like if you are electronic industry, for example, there are international requirements put. We have got one of the major wineries, which is supplies 60% of the wines out exports to Europe. Now they had to look at their greenhouse emissions, not because of their own corporate policy. It came down to them from from their they were supplying to Tesco in UK, which is a major supermarket, and Tesco wanted to, as a part of their commitment to become carbon neutral, they wanted all their suppliers to become carbon neutral, and this drove them to then look at their whole operation and then look at actually somehow. And it interesting. Once you start drilling in, you can identify wonderful opportunities to minimize waste, to reduce your greenhouse emissions, to reduce water. I did a project way back 25 years, where we over a period of 3 years we worked with 48 industries from something like 18 different industry sectors. So not just one sector, 18 different sectors, and the focus was on prevention, not end of the pipe, but on preventative approach towards their entire operation, and how they could prevent the waste at source and prevent the uh, wastage and waste at source, minimize energy, minimize water use, go transition from hazardous to non-hazardous kind of substances. You know what? For every dollar that we spent on that project, the Center for Economic Evaluation, which is an independent body in Adelaide University, we did an economic valuation. For every dollar that we invested, the participating industries, businesses had a return of $33 every dollar. So it was a no-brainer. And this will be true everywhere, not just in Australia. In India, this will be true in any part of the world. There was a book written called Factor 4 going back 30 years. And that book claimed that for the quality of life that we currently have, we could have the same quality of life for one-fourth the resources if you are smart about the way you design your systems. And so it's possible, but it requires, first of all, understanding and then commitment.
Yes, these are things to think about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about India and Australia, so Indian and Australian prime minister have been talking of alliances in
Correct.
this domain.
Yeah.
So, what do you think could be the possible synergies?
There's a lot we can do, and I think already we have initiated the process Australian government has a trade department called Austrade, and I work very closely with them. And we are looking at some Australia India engagement forums. We are at the moment we cannot physically visit each other because of the COVID situation, but we are doing. We are planning to do some like a like a India Australia composite dialogues on circular economy. There was a hackathon that was done only a month ago between India and Australia. CSIRO, which is the research organization here, organized it. Um, I'm involved with doing some e-trade missions, so we'll get together some leading businesses and leading practitioners from Australia, engage with their counterparts in India, and see whether they could collaborate from a knowledge exchange, technology, sort of a transfer perspective. Um, I would personally like to sort of get more involved, and because obviously I wear both hats with a strong Indian background, which I'm very proud of, and having been here for now 30 years, um, I see this as a very logical role for me to be involved in and play, that I could perhaps find a find a bridge between these two wonderful nations, and there's a lot to learn from each other. Um, Not I always take when I always qualify that India, um, if you go back 50 years, circular economy was part of Indian ethos. My parents, my forefathers, my grandparents practiced circular economy without being taught. Um, so it's not going to be difficult uh, for India. In fact, India has got so many wonderful things to talk about and share. But I guess where India currently struggles is uh, this coherent framework, where policy, regulation, education, enforcement, market instruments all actually kind of work together, and that is a long way to go. And but I see a lot of that work happening in future. There are some wonderful things I heard about. I think good to see our peak agencies in India talk about circular economy, like Niti Aayog. Um, I think it will start to gain more currency. But there is a catch there, and the catch is this: that circular economy can also become very academic. I'm not. I love academicians, and I think they have important role to play in the fabric of the society. But if you circular economy for me is about human beings, about human. The human element is critical, and you could have all the communication. I always say is not what you say or what you write; is what is received. And you got a 1 billion potential contributors to circular economy in India, more than a billion, and the actions that they take would decide the outcome of any measure, right? You might put a nice system, but if people are not following the rules, that they're still throwing things everywhere. They're not putting the recyclables in the recycling bin. You're not going to get anywhere. Everything has to be thought through, and that requires work. It can transition. I think it is not. Once it's like a. I always say that if the politicians, the community, the policymakers start to really understand the true potential of circular economy, and what can be done, at in every sector, not just waste. I'm talking about every sector. It pervades everywhere. They will actually then embrace it with 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 a lot of enthusiasm. But I don't think we are there yet. There's going to be work done. That's what I think we want to work with India as well, to really accelerate that understanding and the journey.
So you said that India and Australia can learn from each other. So what is it that they can learn from each other?
Look, I would say that if I will always qualify that people have this fallacious concept that it's a technology that Australia has to give to India. No, technology is a very small part of it. If at all I have to share what is good in Australia, it will be how, not perfectly, I will never say there is perfection exists anywhere, but how well this fabric of circular economy is sitting here. How I mentioned again, I call it a circle of circular economy. How policy, regulation, governance, market instruments, technology, community engagement, community ownership, all this, and academia, all this research and development, all these things, how they support each other. how this collaboration
The
between this
standard
and how that drives circular economy. That is critical.
the
And
snap
that, in
exchange.
my view, you need to replicate. So I think if there is a way we can do some pilot projects in India on that basis, that will be a good starting point, because that's where it becomes, you know, more visible. But that's one area where Australia can offer a lot to India, and this is where I think there's a differentiator as well for us. See, when I look at some of the work done by European agencies in India, and I'm not a critic of them, all they're interested in is providing a technological solution. And I keep on saying that, please, that's a trap. It's a silver bullet. There's no silver, sorry, it's not a silver bullet. Sorry, it's not a silver bullet. Technology will never get you there. It is a social thing. It's not a technology is not it's not rock, it's not some super duper, it's not IT, it's not missiles, it's not space. This is about the the actions that you and I at household level, the choices we make at a household level, it decides circular economy for a nation. And so it is a very dangerous thing to fall into that trap. And India has done that. I mean, how many millions of dollars we have spent on waste to energy plants and some technologies which have never worked, and they will not even work in 50 years time from now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Hemant, for this insightful discussion today. And I'm sure the people who watched the session learned a lot about the circular operations in your company, which also provides a great insight to those who are venturing into a newly emerging startup or business. To our audience, we will continue this series with more discussions and with esteemed experts from various sectors for a more circular future. The writer for this particular session will be shared on our social media channels, and you can always come back to our YouTube channel to check out more of our videos on circular economy. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all.